Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. My name is Lisa Kinski. I'm your producer and co-host, and joined as always by Francois Jeffrey. Francois, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well on this chilly Wednesday morning.
I
Fall
know. Isn't it
has
great?
difference
I
of
know your take on
opinions.
it. Yeah,
I don't not like it. I get to wear like my cozy sweaters and stuff like that, but it's just so cold in the mornings. And I was so
I
spoiled for
know.
so long living in my place in Kennesaw where I got to park in a garage and I
Mm.
forgot how cold my car gets sitting
You
outside
need
living in
to
an apartment
get
now.
a automatic car starter. It's a whole game changer. First of
Okay.
all, I have
It is
it's pretty cheap. It's like $200.
to install aftermarket?
I got it for my mom for her birthday 3 or 4 years ago for her Nissan, and it was total after everything, and I got the advanced package for like $320, and that was
How
in
much?
Virginia. I imagine it's cheaper here.
What year was her Nissan?
It's like a 2009, 2010.
Huh. I
Yeah,
might
so
look into that.
it wasn't expensive. You would think that it's super expensive,
Oh, for
but
sure.
really it's just like a quick. It took them like 2 hours to do also, and they supply, usually if you look it up, they'll supply the entire package. So they'll supply the piece that they actually have to install plus the labor for like $300, and you could do it from like 100 feet away, probably from your
Huh.
apartment actually.
I probably could for my apartment. I'm kind of
Yeah.
also just thinking about getting a new car in total, like just
Mhm.
the whole new car, because I also want heated seats and I
Oh
want a
yeah,
sunroof
the
pretty bad.
luxuries.
Yeah, all the fancies. Because I bought my car 5 years ago, but she's
Uh-huh.
almost got 100,000 miles on her because we've taken it to Ohio and back a couple of times.
Mhm.
And then, but I don't know. I also want something that's like, I drove a truck first and then I went to my little beep beep and it feels like I'm scrubbing my butt on the ground every time when I drive. I want something in the middle.
Yeah. Like something a little bit more lifted. Kate has a crossover, which is pretty nice. I enjoy it. It's not too high. It's not too low. It's a little
She
bit higher than
has
my car.
one of
The
the
Kia
Kias,
Niro.
right?
Yeah.
The Niro. Yeah, see, I want the Seltos pretty bad. And I sat at my parents' house and priced it out the other day, and it's like, I could probably make this happen. But do I need to spend my money on that right now? Probably not.
I mean, it's nice, right? And I think today, especially with the roads being so clear, mostly because of just post pandemic and people aren't going into the office anymore.
We talked
It's
about that post quarantine. We're
post
still
quarantine,
still in a
not pandemic. We're
panorama.
still in a okay. And I mean, it's global. I mean, when I was
Yes,
doing some research for this conversation, even Southeast Asia is still pretty impacted
it
by
seems
all
like it
of
is.
this. I remember I was talking to Jay, and we were talking about the cabinetry factories that we have
Mhm.
in Vietnam, and little did I know they were closed down for like 2 months, and they were under strict guidelines that workers couldn't go back to work. It was something like 6 weeks, and no one was talking about it here. And everyone was, talking about China, for example, and having
Yeah.
smaller outbreaks. But no one was mentioning, at least that I was talking to in the e-commerce world, people that also thought about moving to Vietnam or did move to Vietnam.
Mhm.
They didn't want to talk about, hey, Vietnam is also shut down for like a month and a half, 2 months,
Yeah,
which is pretty nuts. I mean, it's a huge topic, I think, in today's world, and I think in today's conversation, most
definitely.
importantly.
Definitely. Well, let's hear a little bit more about what's going on in Southeast Asia. For everybody that is watching live, please be sure to just hop in the comments, say hello, give us a thumbs up, share with any of your friends that you think would also be interested in this conversation. Today, we're talking with Bernard Hor with Hatio Group, and he is calling in from Malaysia. So, Bernard, welcome. And what's going on over there?
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Frank. Good morning, right? Over there.
Yes.
Yeah, and good
Morning
evening to
here,
you.
and
Hey,
good
It's
evening
10
to you.
good
it's 10
evening.
p.m. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for doing this.
10 p.m. Yep, kids in the bed. Good time to do this. Thank you for
Perfect.
having me on the show. Yeah, perfect.
So, how are things over in Malaysia right now? Are you guys still in pretty strict quarantine, or do you have a little bit more freedom? Because it's different everywhere.
Absolutely. It's just maybe about 2 to 3 weeks ago, I think, and I would really love to think that we're finally seeing some light at the end of the tunnel.
Good.
And Malaysia is basically currently we've basically went into this recovery phase
Mhm.
of the COVID lockdown. I guess the numbers of cases are also declining. Economies are starting to open up again. It's starting to get exciting. The traffic jams are coming back. Although my office is only like 8 minutes away, so I'm pretty fine from that. But yeah, the traffic jams is coming back. Bars are open. I think everybody just got to keep to the SOP of the masks and the sanitize and all that. But yeah, I would love to think that we are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Although COVID is not going away, right? It's like this is it, right? This is it. Live with it, and yeah. So, but it's good to be able to be connected, right? Yeah.
Are you starting to see? So when we started to go into recovery here, everyone started to think everything was going to be fine and dandy, and we're having extreme issues. Whether it's this new wave of everyone quitting their jobs or realizing their true value, for example, is a big thing with labor shortages here in the U.S. and people just quitting. But also when it comes to supply chain, we're seeing tremendous backups because we started to go into this recovery where everything started to open back up. E-commerce hit a huge boom, right? We have a lack of truckers. We have severe port congestion. We have massive container shortages around the world. Stores and brands are struggling to keep up even with the demand. So it's more of a game of survival than it is for anything else. I mean, if you have inventory, you essentially could win very easily nowadays. Are you seeing any of those struggles in Malaysia also?
Absolutely. So let me just give you an example, right? I went to the Chinese medicine shop last weekend, right? And because there was a request. You see, I don't normally go to the Chinese medicine shop, but there was a request from a good friend in Indonesia, right? He was looking for those when you have your muscle ache and then you need a patch. You need a patch or a spray,
like icy
right?
hot.
Like
with
icy
the
hot.
Chinese medicine herbs. Yeah, like the Chinese medicine herbs. So what happened was we got a call from this very close friend from Indonesia, and he says, you know what, the whole Indonesia, this thing is out of stock, right? I think you can find it in Malaysia. We're like, okay, let's do that, right? So I went around Chinese medicine shops until I got to I think was it the third or the fourth medicine shop, and the lady at the counter just told me this, right? He says, yeah, everybody is looking for this. Are you sending this to Indonesia? We're like, how do you know I'm sending this to Indonesia? It's like, yeah. So this whole thing has been promised. So we were told that this patch and the spray, there's two versions of it, right? This patch is going to come in at 6 months ago. So the supplier promised, the supply promise that's going to reach here 6 months ago, but today it's still not here. So of course the lady blamed me, like, I think it's stuck at a port, or China is probably having some problems with the supply chain, and all that. So this is one of the very simple example of a Chinese medicine shop. But if you just look at it from the scale, if you just scale this problem up, it is right. I remember during the lockdown, and it is during the lockdown, and we're all at home, and you finally want to do some home improvements, and you want to go to IKEA, right? And then you so and I remember we were trying to put some new furnitures into the office. So we were like shopping for furnitures in IKEA, and every single thing, almost 80% of the things that we're clicking on is out of stock. It's like sold out, no stock, all right? So I guess from the Chinese medicine shop to IKEA, automotive parts.
Yes.
It's a nightmare, right? It's a nightmare, even to the extent, I'm not too sure how and why, but to the extent that, the engine oils are out of stock. So imagine you got to service your car, it's up for service, and they tell you, look, dude, the engine oil is coming in 2 months. Yeah. So it is happening. Yeah, from Chinese medicine shop to IKEA to the automotive spare parts. And we're really seeing this shortages, and I believe it's not in Malaysia, but throughout the Southeast Asian region as well. Yeah.
What about food distributors? because it's like Francois said, it's global, and like you're saying, the shortages and delays and things are widespread across industries. We tried to order lunch from somewhere yesterday, and they were out of literally everything. I mean, almost
Oh, really?
everything.
It was a
Uh-huh.
Mexican restaurant. They were out of tortillas. They were out of steak. They were out of pork. They were out of the only thing that they had, and this is very fine tuned also to just the South and Atlanta.
Yes.
They only had chicken
Right.
sandwiches.
Right. They're gonna
That's
start.
all
They're
they
gonna start
had.
changing their menu. It's not.
Yeah.
I think it's time. It's time to pivot their menu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Try serving Chinese, right? Easy ingredients, maybe. But I think I'm not too sure. Okay. So if I were to give you a local context on this in Malaysia in terms of food distribution, so far my orders has been fine.
Okay.
I order a fishball noodle. The fishball noodle comes. It's really people are cashing in. In fact, a lot of businesses are doubling down. Over the period of COVID, the lockdown, we do see a lot of cloud kitchen, sprouting all over the place. The F&B guys are really pivoting really fast. I think it's survival, right? When the need to survive
Yeah.
kicks in, and people are just pivoting their business models. A couple of my clients who runs cold chain warehouses, cold chain logistics, have their sales increased. We do see their sales increased. Their warehouses are full out. People are asking. I think there's a high demand of cold chain warehouses and logistics in that sense. So I'm not too sure if or maybe just we don't have much, because typically in Malaysia we're also we don't really import a lot of stuff, right? So that's we're basically pretty much self-reliant as well. I mean, typically in ASEAN countries like Thailand, it's really very much self-sustainable, right? So I'm not too sure if I don't really see that happening right here. Yeah.
Well, good.
Okay.
Good. That's good to hear. For sure.
Yeah, and I mean, would you mind walking us through some of your background and history, because you have a unique background? Sounds like you're a serial entrepreneur also, as are a lot of our other guests. So I'd love to learn a little bit about sort of where you came from and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So basically, I'm currently the co-founder of Hatio. And how I started really was my background is basically in the communication space, and I started with running a youth agency, a youth marketing agency, and then eventually we exited the business, and the next business was really we went into corporate communications. We were basically advising public listed companies and big brands, especially the telco brands, and also the healthcare organizations on their corporate communications and sustainability programs. And then what happened was we had an opportunity to pivot our business pretty fast. In that it was, I think, somewhere about perhaps 7 or 8 years ago. We had the opportunity to pivot in technology. Now, I don't come from a technology background, right? I'm a journalist by training, right? So I write, and so we had the opportunity to go towards the technology space, and I took a deep dive in there together with my co-founders, and that's how we started to also at the same time extend the services to the existing clients that we were serving. And we were at one point in time we found ourselves advising and even executing digital transformation projects and strategies for these clients, right? And the more you do it, it's kind of get really fun, and you really get a hang of it. So what happened was then I met my co-founders in Korea during a 1 month break holiday. So me and my wife and I, we pack our bags with the kids, 1 month holiday off in Seoul in South Korea, and I came back. Yeah, I came back meeting. So we went, 4 of us. I came back with a whole bunch of co-founders and a business, right? And it was that was Hatio.
It's a good trip.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be like a self-discovery, for the family trip. I think what we discovered was really a whole industry and a whole business. So that was really cool, right? And the history of Hatio. So coming down to Hatio is that the history of Hatio is that my co-founder, Mr. Nam, he's a Korean, right? I'm not sure if he's listening in now, but my co-founder, Mr. Nam, founded a little bit of backstory is that prior to Hatio, before Hatio, he founded another company which was eventually acquired by Samsung. And we were in the manufacturing technology space, right? So after we were acquired by Samsung, we went on to found Hatio in Seoul in South Korea, and that's where we decided to use our experiences and the capabilities from the manufacturing execution systems space, technology space, and to apply it into supply chain and logistics. So towards the middle mile and the last mile, right? So we were very, very focused in the middle mile. We were very fortunate to have worked with top blue chips companies in Korea, and also with folks like Lazada's, iHer.com, CJ Logistics. So we're doing a lot of stuff there, and then in the late 2018, that's where the leadership sat down one day and decided to say, hey, you know what? I think it's time to kind of like leave the comfort zone, right? To get out of the comfort zone and seek a new region, right? So at that time, there was a huge push within the South Korean government to basically help South Korean companies and businesses and startups to explore the Southeast Asia region. So we took advantage of that. We hopped on the bandwagon, and I remember it was a very, very cool journey that we had. A couple of programs that we participated in, and then me being the Southeast Asian guy, so it was a natural progression, right? It was like, oh, hey, this is home ground, right? And I I brought my friends and my co-founders to Southeast Asia. And then, of course, we based out ourselves in Kuala Lumpur because it was, I understood the entire process here, right? So that's how we based it out here. Today we are basically in a couple of key markets in Southeast Asia, namely Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, and the Philippines, and of course Malaysia, right? Yeah. So that's how we came to this point. Yeah.
And it's exciting. I mean, that's a big reason that we even got that we were founded at Noviland. It's really changing and disrupting the way supply chain, which traditionally is a very antiquated model, right? It's a very manual, very historically, it's like Microsoft Excel and like sending forms back and forth and signing. Like it's the fax days, right, where everyone used to fax things instead of email even.
Some people still rely on fax. It's crazy.
Which is crazy. Yeah, that's mind blowing.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
But how did you I guess, what did you have to learn about supply chain when you started to get into this and when you met your founders? I guess, what was part of your vision and your story of improving supply chain into the Southeast Asian market?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the question so when we in late 2018 when we decided to leave, get out of the comfort zone and to seek the Southeast Asian region, I remember the whole idea was really all this cool stuff that we're doing back in where we were in our base, automation, robotics. So we're doing a lot of automation, robotics, Internet of Things, AIs, all these the warehouse controls and execution stuff. So the whole idea was to like, hey, let's bring all this cool and sexy stuff that we're doing in the Southeast Asia, right? And so, but we didn't rush into like setting up Southeast Asia. We took our time. I remember I had 4 crazy months of traveling Southeast Asia, right? I had like whole crazy week in Bangkok downtown. I until you get so like, okay, Bangkok never sleeps, right? In Vietnam and Philippines. I traveled. It's like people will bring us to go and see warehouse. So I had a lot of nice, interesting conversations with logistics operators, right? From third-party logistics to distributors to retailers, right? And of course, we were starting to see a lot of upcoming trend of e-commerce retailers, right? I think we'll speak about that in a while. So what happened was as we go out there and to the grounds and we talk to all these guys, we realized the one thing is that I was talking to a lot of local SMEs players. I was talking to a lot of local guys, not the big MNCs, right? Because the big multinationals got it all sorted and figured out, I believe, right? So we're talking to a lot of local SMEs. And one thing that we realized was that it's not about affordability, it's about the readiness. So the market wasn't ready for all these robotics and automation and whatnot, because it's big investment, right? And how do you justify ROIs, right? So it's not about affordability, it's about the readiness. The market volume wasn't there, right? Give you an example, right? A 3PL fulfillment center doesn't have the volume enough to justify automating the entire place. Hence, they're still on pen and paper, or the most that they went, the benchmark, the point that they went in terms of digitization was accounting systems, and using accounting system to manage inventory. I'm sure you see quite a number of that as well in where you're at, right? So we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of Microsoft Excel spreadsheets and all that. And so it came to a point where we said, hey, you know what? So as we took the 4 months, and the more we spoke to the guys on the ground, I remember that one night we came back to the table, went back to our drawing board, and we says, hey, look, if we're gonna do this, Southeast Asia is not ready for robotic arms, for automated guided vehicles, for RFIDs. Let's put it this way, right? Southeast Asia is not ready for it. But as we went through the 4 months of crazy traveling and talking to a lot of these local guys, we actually saw a big opportunity in a very big addressable market, which is the local SMEs, the local 3PLs, the local warehouse operators, the local retailers, the local distributors, the traditional kind of distributors, right? That distributes to the mom and pops, right? So we saw that as an opportunity, and we said, hey, perhaps let's not think too far or too sophisticated. Perhaps the mandate really was so simple that what we want to do is really to help local SMEs digitize. So that's all we wanted to do. So I remember that night we sat on the table. I drew it big on the whiteboard. I rubbed everything off. I remember when I rubbed that off, my co-founder was like, "But I haven't even took any notes down, right? Sorry, that is not important. What is important is this one key mandate, which is helping local SMEs digitize, and that's what we want to do." So we set up doing that since the late 2018, and we circle all our conversations around that. So it wasn't about selling a software. It wasn't about just going out there and say, "Hey, look, this is a software." I remember one of the first key things that we did was a warehouse management software, right? So we and of all the conversations that I had, I remember, a lot of people were telling us, "Bernard, don't waste your time in Southeast Asia. Why are you trying to sell software to Chinamans, right? It doesn't work. You're trying to sell cloud to a traditional 40-year-old already in operations company. How are you going to do that? These guys won't buy, because why? They're comfortable with pen and paper or Microsoft Excel spreadsheets." So the entrepreneur in us, right, wanted to prove these guys wrong. And I said, look, so you know what I did? So the place that I lived in, this is my home, right? So the place that I lived in, this street, is very near to the ports and the warehouses area. So I kind of along the way realized that every 3 houses, there's someone either own a warehouse, or they're working in a warehouse, or they work in a logistics company or a freight company or something like that. So they're in the supply chain logistics space. So I was lucky. I had a neighbor on the other corner. So I'm at this corner, it's on the other corner. And he runs about 400,000 square feet warehouse, right? So I walked down one day and I said, "Hey, look, would you like, I asked him about his warehouse, how he's operating. Of course, you have it, right? You can guess it that, we are really, very pen and paper, very manual, right? I said, fine, right? Even the accounting, I remember he telling us, my accounting system was installed 19 years ago. Okay, maybe if I include this year, it's called 21 years ago, right? But at that time, I told him my accounting system was installed 19 years ago. And then I brought the updated version. He showed me the box, but I didn't know how to update it. So I'm still using 19 years ago. And this is the account, is kind of software that's managing my inventory, right? So I was like, oh, wow. So I began speaking to him, understanding the whole, empathizing what was happening, what was going on. And then I said, hey, look, what if we can get, what if we can build you a warehouse management software? And his eyes lighted up and like, wow, Bernard, and I remember this, right? He told us, Bernard, if you can do this, this will be my dream come true. I like,
Mm.
but we like it's only a and I start to realize and learn that the WMS market in the logistics space among the local SMEs is a very expensive game.
Mm.
So that probably is the key reason why a lot of these guys are still pen and paper, Excel spreadsheets, or accounting systems, right? And they can't really have a proper warehouse management software.
Mhm.
So what
And
we did was,
when
go
you
ahead.
say expensive, do you mean expensive to build the software for them or to transition into utilizing a WMS?
Good question. Number one is expensive. It's a pricey affair to own a software. Number one.
Mm.
So there isn't many people building it here. So there's a lot of softwares from the US, from the UK, like Informat and all those guys. And to own and to onboard, right? To deploy a WMS then was easily $500,000 and above. Easily,
Oh,
just to
Good Lord.
enter, right? So we're like, okay, but it is the market price, right? That is one. Of course, number two, like you just rightfully mentioned, is the pain of transitioning into a manual operations into a system guided operations, right?
Mhm.
So that's what we do in terms of helping local SME digitize. We basically help them move from manual to system guided, right? So what we did was we pulled all our capabilities and experiences that we were running out in South Korea, right? We pull our experiences and capabilities and all these modules that we had. We put it together and we actually deploy and delivered our first WMS in 3.5 months. Now, this first client, client zero, I like to call him client 001, and his name is Uncle Tan, right? So we Asians are very polite, right? So everybody we call uncle, auntie, So Uncle Tan is client 001. And he bought a software before we even actually have a software. So he bought a WMS before we even have any product. So that was customer one. Customer two did the same thing. So we're like, oh wow, I don't think it's because we are good salesmen. I think it's really a need in the market, right?
Mhm.
Right.
So that's where we started and say, okay, then what we did was we say, okay, now how do we make this? So we had two formulas. Now we know we can build a software, but how do we make this affordable? And how do we? So we had two formulas, two rules, right? Two parameters. How do we make this affordable, and how do we make this agile? I mean, it must have speed and it must be very, very flexible, fast and flexible, and it must be affordable, right? So that's where we said, look, since everybody is selling a WMS for $500,000 as a start, you know what, guys? Let's turn the WMS product into a software as a service model. Let's turn it into a SaaS model, put it into the cloud, and make it into a monthly subscription, but we bill annually. So we managed to bring the cost down all the way to 1/3 of a $500,000 price tag. And today we're selling it at below $100,000 price tag a year, right? So now it makes it very affordable for these local SMEs to jump on the bandwagon and own and take ownership of a software, right? And it's already on the cloud, right? So they have a lot of fast and flexibility, speed and be able to be very flexible. And now they are. But what is more important is you allow and you actually help these local businesses to scale, because a lot of these local businesses are just doing a lot of B2B fulfillment, right? B2B
like cross
delivery.
docking and distribution.
Cross-docking, correct. So today, the trend of e-commerce is really uptrend, right? And everybody wants a piece of that pie. So what we're really doing today as we speak, I think I have another about maybe two of my teams are basically onboarding a client right now, and they're basically helping a B2B fulfillment client move into a B2C fulfilling for e-commerce. And with e-commerce, if you don't have a technology, you can't use pen and paper. You practically can't depend on pen and paper to fulfill e-commerce. You're gonna die standing. So that's it's a bit draggy, this story, but I kind of thought it's worth talking about it.
Well, I think it's especially important not just for local companies, but for global brands that are thinking about selling into Southeast Asia, right? Because I mean, particularly the Western world has this very skewed mindset of how things need to be done and the standards, I guess, of the world. Like even when I was in college, what we learned was a lot of automation. What we learned was systems and processes were always going to be put on very advanced technologies. But then when you go to the real world, and for example, when I started with Noviland, we started working with Chinese factories, and I started to get my personal interactions with them. And you learn that is not the norm. That is not the standard. You're working with small to
Yeah.
medium-sized factories. The majority
Yeah.
of them are very the models and nothing against it, but just the traditional model is email back and forth. It's relationship based. They typically have workers that are working in manual processes. They don't have big pieces of machinery that are just automating, pumping out tens of thousands of units at a time. No, they have those, but that's not the norm, right?
Yeah.
So
but you see, but you see, in another way, which is fine, because even if it's manual, pen, paper, Excel, a traditional way, but it has worked well, or at least in their terms, it has worked well for the last 30, 40 years.
right.
So I remember one question that we always ask ourselves, right? I mean, from especially when we talk about business models, right? Is ultimately what we're doing, are we a medicine or are we a supplement? Are we a vitamin C or are we a cough mixture? Right? Are we in to fix something that's broken, or are we basically in to optimize and make it more efficient? Because it's very different, right? When you go in and try to empathize and talk to these guys, right? I've tried walking into a 60-year-old warehouse operator run and try to tell them that things are broken. Yeah. You know what you end up getting? They'll break your ego after that and you're out of the game. No, man. For 60 years I've been doing it. You're now telling me it's wrong? No way, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, same thing for just U.S. businesses in general, where they traditionally they've just been doing this for so long, and a lot of it is relationship based, where they just know somebody or they have the same freight forwarder. But when's the last time you audited, for example, your supply chain? When's the last time that you analyzed your costs and tried to diversify your suppliers? Because in today's environment, it's just very risky to only have one supplier, or to have just one fulfillment center, or to just have one trucking company that you rely on, or to be single coast instead of bi-coastal, so you could reach more people just in case the carriers are having shortages and drivers are short to deliver. It's exciting. I mean, when I talk about supply chain, there's so many pieces that just need to tie together to be in harmony, and to make a brand even be able to sell something, right? At the end of the day, it's just getting a product into a customer's hands, but there's so much that goes into that.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, what are some of the other problems, or I guess common issues with e-commerce in Southeast Asia compared to, let's say, the US or the EU?
I recently was reading a research by the Asian Development Bank. I think this was a research in 2018 or 2019, something like that. And the research shows that in Southeast Asia, the e-commerce market is in a nascent stage, right? It's exciting. It has a very steady growth. More and more people, it's Southeast Asia alone is a 640 million people population, right? And it's growing. And you know what's the best part? Half of these guys are under the age of 30. So you have a lot of young consumers, right? Young consumers. And I think that the challenge that remains even till today, in 2021, I think the challenge remains that, for Southeast Asia is the underdeveloped, digital payment infrastructure, and perhaps not that strong of a logistics framework, right? Because when you talk about logistics, it's all about connectivity, right? It's like, by the end of, at the end of 2015, there's about 306 million people, in ASEAN which were active social media users, right? 273 million of whom access social media networks through their mobile devices, right? And even then, and you're talking about 5 years ago, even then, half of Thais and 1/3 of Malaysians and Indonesians were basically purchasing products on the internet directly. and you're talking about the purchasing over, directly via the social media, right? So ASEAN is definitely one of the, it's very one of the world's fastest growing regions when it comes to e-commerce, right? So I think to basically piece these pictures together, right? And to being able to say, how e-commerce is actually going to be affecting and what drives the e-commerce growth, right? And I think there's Southeast Asia in this region today. It needs there's a big need to basically piece the puzzles together. Logistics, connectivity, technology, right? That integrates with all the e-commerce marketplaces. How do you bring products closer to the customers? I mean, if you look at markets like Indonesia, markets like Philippines, with the geographical landscape, is a big challenge, right? It's a big challenge to basically deliver products, right? So I think there's a lot of things that's going on. There's a lot of framework agreements that's being signed. There's a lot of key strategies around Southeast Asia that's being done by the governments, to basically enhance the logistics processes within this region. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the infrastructure across the board for all nations, but particularly more developing nations, it does seem to be something that's not talked about enough, particularly, when brands are thinking just EU or just US or North America in general and selling their products there. But I mean, like you said, 640 million people, with the majority of them being under 30. That's a massive consumer market.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, when it comes to the digitization, also, I think that's something that a lot of Western brands struggle to get their heads around, because from where they're coming from, most of their warehouses are going to be digitized, or they have some sort of WMS that they can access pretty easily. Now, when a brand is thinking about expanding into Southeast Asia, I guess, what should they be looking for when they are looking for these partners, when they are looking for a logistics partner, whether it's freight, whether it's warehousing, whether it's last mile trucking? What do they need to consider?
In my personal opinion, and currently basically also working with a couple of global brands penetrating the Southeast Asian markets, in my opinion, visibility will be key. Visibility of their supply chain, of their flow of goods, will be very key, right? And I think this becomes a huge challenge in terms of the infrastructure. Do we have lack of warehouse spaces? Not really, right? But you see, for example, for the Nikes of the world, right, who is looking at Southeast Asia region, when they come in, so when you go to Malaysia, the Malaysian market, you will have, let's say, 3 warehouse operators, and these are 3 different warehouse operators, right? 3 logistic partners. And then when you're in Indonesia, you probably have, it's a bigger country, so you probably have 5, right? And the Philippines, another 5. Now the thing is, the challenge begins when the goods come, when the distribution of the goods comes through, right? And everybody's working on different kind of SOP. Some with systems, some without systems. Some warehouses are properly digitized, most are not, right? Based on what we've seen in the local SME space, right? So what we really, hence the mission of helping local SMEs digitize. So what we really on a mission to do here is to basically power up local logistics operations, right? Whether is it warehouse, or whether it's the last mile, or the mid mile and last mile, and basically as we do that more and more, and we gain better traction on this, when the brand comes in, they do not need, now they can have sort of like a main control tower and one single dashboard, and they could be able to control their own and manage their inventory based on one dashboard. And it can be 3 different warehouse or logistics players, partners in Malaysia. another 5 in Indonesia. But to the brand, to the global brand, they're basically liaising with one partner, and they're looking at one single dashboard, right? So the challenge now on our side, that means the challenge on players like ours, technology players like us, is basically how do you then break these silos, right? How do you go faster, helping these local SMEs get digitized and increase their efficiency and optimize their warehouse operations, to the extent that once these brands comes in and wants to penetrate the Southeast Asian market, they know that they can basically work with one key partner and able to manage their flow of goods across different markets within the Southeast Asian region. So I think the first thing that is very important to look for is basically the partner, the logistic partner that is able to give you the visibility, right? Of course, the local SMEs are the ones that will always be able to give you the upper hand advantage in terms of their localization, their on ground, and of course, I believe to a certain extent, even costing, right? And to any big brands out there, it's very cost sensitive, right? It's always the costing, and how can you get my product closer to the customers, right? And in fact, today, if you look at the Southeast Asian region today, there are more and more. It's like there's this trend of micro fulfillment, right? It's like, how do you create a seamless connectivity to support the e-commerce growth? This really remains a very big challenge, right? So e-commerce is growing in Southeast Asia. Just 12 months ago, 40 million users in Southeast Asia shop online. And these are all new users, right? And it doesn't look like they're going to stop doing that just because COVID is going. Okay, no, COVID is not going away, but just because economies, they continue going to do that, right? So while e-commerce is on the rise, and we can see, right, as a technology business, we do see more and more retailers turning into omni-channel brands, turning to e-commerce as a main source of their channel to the marketplace, right? So then it becomes, how do you create that seamless connectivity to support this e-commerce growth, right? So today we are seeing a lot of micro fulfillment centers popping out here and there, right? And the whole idea of these micro fulfillment centers, or dark store, if you like, right, is basically how do you bring this product closer to the customers, right? Of course, there's a big argument. I mean, there's a huge debate, right? There's a huge debate over the myth of same-day delivery or on-demand delivery. But today, and I think over the last 18 months, as we are all locked down at home, and we were all now so used to, like Google wasn't a word and today is a verb, right? So today we're also used to that whole idea of, like, it's like in my household, in a week, if we don't see the delivery guy, the parcel delivery guy shows up in our door in a week, something is not right. Like every week there must be 1 or 2 times, right? And if there's nothing, if you don't buy anything from the marketplaces, you kind of like order groceries. So the grocery, is like an hour ago, the grocery guy just show up, right? With 2 crates of Vitagen, right? So it becomes a norm already, and how do you then so how do you then fulfill that customer demand, fulfill that buyers, the e-commerce buyers demand of same-day delivery? People don't mind paying to get it. Like, I bought it today, but I still want it yesterday.
And as we work a little bit more upstream, when we talk about, for example, Shopee, which has, I think it was like over 300 million visits per month, and Lazada that has like 130 or 150 million visits per month in Southeast Asia. What sort of integrations and automations are we seeing between them and the fulfillment centers? Because when you have, all these different micro fulfillment centers, for example, and getting closer to the consumer, it makes it more complex, right? Like, who's going to be receiving the order? How do you process the order? How do you receive payment for the order? Because cash on delivery is very popular in Southeast Asia also. So can we walk through that process a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. This is basically, I would say as this is basically the center of the action right now. This is basically the heart of the action right now, all right? And you know, back in our team, we're really excited to be at the heart of the action every day, right? So believe it or not, there are still a big a number of fulfillment centers or even e-distributors out there who fulfill these orders manually. When I say fulfill orders manually means what? They actually, so when you sell on Lazada or Shopee, you have your seller centers, right? So they actually basically manage their products, manage their campaigns, manage their orders through via the seller centers individually. So whenever there's an order comes in, every morning they log into different seller centers to download the orders, take it out on a CSV file or an Excel file, and then they pass it to their fulfillment guys. Or if not, if they do their own fulfillment, they're basically based on that as their pick list, pack list, and then after that they have to log in and print an airway bill, and then they stick and wrap and go, right? So it's a very manual process. It's a very manual process, and believe it or not, like I said, there's still quite a big chunk of the market is still doing like that. However, over the last 18 months, right, especially when e-commerce really take a uptrend, we do see a lot of startups, technology startups trying to fill this gap, right? So you're talking about Shopline, you're talking about Zappy, you're talking about site giants and likes of those guys, who is basically saying, hey, look, you e-commerce sellers, use something that is already I've already integrated with Lazada and Shopee, the marketplaces, and all you do is that you basically manage your orders from here, right? So there's basically a lot of these technology startups are popping up along the way. So the idea here then becomes the question that we're basically asking ourselves every day in the team is, how do we help, number one, the sellers sell better, sell more, and sell faster? Right? And then on the fulfillment side, how do we help the fulfillment process to make it more seamless, no out of stock, no overselling, and have better efficiency and control over the inventories? So this is basically the two key things that you want to tackle. That's how we eventually the last 18 months. I like. I hate to say this, but the last 18 months is like COVID is like kind of like a blessing in disguise, because the last 18 months basically push us and drive us so hard that we grew from a typical warehouse management software product, right, into a full-blown end-to-end cloud supply chain platform. So it's basically a platform. It's a cloud supply chain platform that connects to all the marketplaces, to the major marketplaces like Lazada, Shopee, Zalora, and all the likes of it. And then we're also connected and also already integrated with all the last mile deliveries, companies. We are also integrated to the back end of the accounting systems, the cloud accounting systems. So now it gives. So can you imagine this, right? Now it gives a very seamless experience to the sellers and the fulfillment centers, right? So there's two types of sellers. There's one type of sellers that does their own fulfillment. That means they're pretty much the smaller, going towards the medium guys, perhaps 30 to 50 orders a day. But you see that there will be no retailers, whether it's e-commerce retailer or brick and mortar retailers, right? No retailers will come and tell you, yeah, I'm happy as a small guy and I just want to stay there, right? Every retailer wants to build their own empire, right? They want to run the whole 9 yards, right? And what is the ultimate when you get to the whole 9 yards is basically, your sales grow, your number of orders grow, right? And every Lazada 11, it's like over the last 18 months, we used to only have like the 11 and the 12 day, right? And over the last 18 months, every month there's a sales, right? It's like 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4 5 5. So every month there's like a big day. And everybody is cashing in on a big day. So you look at the retailers that falls back into e-commerce, they're basically doubling down on every big day. More stocks, more SKUs, right? But like how you rightfully put it, more stocks, more SKUs, more orders also means more nightmare in fulfillment, right? So how do you then have a seamless experience, right? And it's because of this, and because of the whole pandemic and whatever, it has really driven us so hard that today we basically moved and pivot really fast from being just a mere typical warehouse management software provider into a full-blown cloud supply chain platform. And today we're basically very happy helping a lot of our clients We're basically helping our retail clients move into e-commerce. We're basically helping 3PL guys who does B2B now fulfilling for B2C. Almost every other week, we're helping e-commerce fulfillment centers setting up their entire fulfillment processes so that there's no more out of stock, no more overselling. Inventories there's a full visibility to the inventories. The whole supply chain is transparent. And I think that is the key to how they grow and scale as a retailer, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a new level of maturity, and we've been talking a lot more about that, I think, Lisa, recently. It's really the maturity in global supply chain, not just in Southeast Asia, but also even here in the US. It's this level where everyone is able to be an entrepreneur. Everyone is able to sell online, right? You're able to form your own brand. But that's going to mean also that there are those learning curves, that there are those extreme costs that you have to go through to, be the big guy, to be the mid-level company before you're the larger company. And
that's right.
Visibility, and visibility really seems to be key. Now, what about those that say, hey, costs are the number one thing that I'm evaluating? Because there's always, those brands that are at this inflection point. Right. They say, well, I really want to use more automation. I really want to use warehouse with more digitization. I want more visibility. But at the same time, they're a little bit more expensive, or they're a lot more expensive. Who knows? There comes that inflection point. What would you say to them as they're growing and they're learning, let's say even how to work with a 3PL? Maybe they have been managing everything themselves and they're looking to start to outsource. Do you have any advice for someone that's at that point?
So see, the funny thing here is that it was just the whole week. I spent the whole week strategizing with the team, with the sales and the BD team in the office and the product team, and say, hey, look, how do we help these guys, right? Because over the last 18 months, I'm going to come back to the 18 months again, because the last 18 months is actually very exciting. We're locked down, we're working from home most of the time, but it's actually so exciting, right? And we've seen small e-commerce players growing into the medium size. Medium e-commerce players growing large. And there's actually a trend of these medium e-commerce players that as they move towards the large segment, they're now doing cross borders. That's very interesting. They're doing cross-border e-commerce, right? And now we have clients in Malaysia saying, hey, I'm going to start selling in Singapore. Can you fulfill Singapore, or can your system be used in Singapore as well, right? That kind of thing. We're like, sure, why not? We're in the cloud, right? And I think I wouldn't want to call it as an advice, but I think the whole idea, and it's a challenge that we've been discussing whole week through, is how do we create, or how do we take these retailers, especially these e-commerce retailers, out of the thinking that outsourcing into a 3PL with all these automated workflows and systems is actually expensive, right? So instead of looking at it from the from a price point of view, look at it from growth point of view, right? It's not just of course, reality at the end of the day is, if you're selling just a pen and it's $1, you really don't want to spend $1.20 fulfilling this, right? Per order, right? I mean, unless you're selling a bunch of 100 pens at every order, then it's a different story, right? But then again, so really, it's not about we're trying to create a perception or to create a belief to say, hey, look at it from the point of view of growth, right? And technology is not something to be afraid of. Technology, because today when you talk about technology, everybody, the first thinking of a lot of people's mind, especially in the more developing markets, is technology is expensive. Technology is not affordable, right? And wow, if this, like you mentioned, if this 3PL has all this technology, they must be very expensive, right? The good news is more and more of these 3PL guys, of these fulfillment guys, are jumping on a bandwagon of technology. That means they basically are deploying technologies in the warehouse. There are more and more fulfillment centers sprouting out almost every other day, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's a 50,000 fulfillment square feet or it's basically a 5,000 square feet, there's a lot. More and more people are young startups, like young people like
Mhm.
you and I, right, are basically opening up fulfillment centers. Smaller ones, smaller mini versions, but closer to the customers, right? So take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. Don't be afraid of the technology. Don't just look from the price point of view, but focus on the growth point of view, right? Being able to look at where your growth market is, right? Where exactly is your set? Where exactly is your buyers? Where are your buyers at? Where your market is? Where is your potential for growth, right? And to bring you from maybe a medium guy into a large
Mhm.
segment, right? So today I'm a large guy. Look at potential for growth across cross borders, right? And not just look at don't start from the price. Price will be a consideration, most definitely, but don't be afraid of, because there's a technology, the price is expensive, right? Today, I think today with the kind of growth and the trend of fulfillment centers, even manufacturers are shifting gears, right? Manufacturers are shifting gears into the fulfillment game as well,
Mhm.
and they're basically looking at direct to consumers. So for brands, for product owners who are actually manufacturing their own products, this is another key strategy, right? So instead of worrying about, okay, now with all these things that I'm producing, how and where and who do I work with for fulfillment? Hey, you know what? There's an opportunity right now for me to do direct to consumers, right? And it's a growing trend, especially lately, in the Southeast Asian region. Yeah.
Definitely. And that's a great takeaway for all of our viewers, is focusing on that growth mindset approach.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Because the key rule is, no retailer or anybody in the retail game would want to stay the small retailer. There's
Mhm.
always that vision, right? That
Mhm.
inspiration to be the next IKEA. So the home furniture guy who starts to sell, 50 SKUs wants to do 5,000 SKUs like what IKEA is doing, right? Maybe not brick and mortar, but fully e-commerce, right? And we have a
Mhm.
client like that as well. And it's amazing just to witness their growth, their fast growth over the last 12, 18 months, right? So yeah,
Absolutely. It
there's
has
a
been
lot of
amazing.
potential. Yeah, yeah,
And there
yeah.
was someone the other day, I
Mhm.
forgot exactly who, but they said it on the podcast. For growth, you have three options. It's buy, partner, or build. Right? You build your own software, or you partner with a warehouse that already has a software, or you buy the software that ultimately. Did I say buy? I don't remember.
I think
But
you
you have
said
those
build
three
Yeah,
first.
options. Build. Okay.
build.
We get it.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
or you buy a software that's already existing and
Correct.
integrate
Build,
that into
partner,
your
or
system. So
buy.
you
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
That's right.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good
yeah,
mindset for
yeah,
growth.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Definitely. Well, Bernard, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our time today. If anybody has any questions about Hatio Group, or if they just want to speak with you about the information you shared today, where can they learn more?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can log on to hatio.asia. Thank you very much for helping me post that up.
You're welcome.
Find me on LinkedIn, find me on Facebook. Yeah, I pretty much respond very fast. So I'll be very happy. I'll be more than happy to have conversations. I've always my key rule that I live by, the mantra I live by is, especially in the technology, especially as a product company, is that never sell the product, right? So don't worry, I'm not going to sell you like how the insurance agents is doing it.
Mhm.
Let's have conversations. I love conversations around supply chain logistics because it's so complex and there's just no rules to it, right? It's
Right.
how each and everybody doing it right now, and there's just so much notes that I believe we can share and make this more efficient and optimized. Yeah. So thank you guys for having me on the show. I really enjoy our conversation.
Thank you so
Of
much. We
course. Thank
enjoyed
you
it
for
as
coming on.
well. And we will link that URL in the description of the video and the audio experience, as always. Thank you, everybody who tuned in live today and hopped in the comments and said hello. We really appreciate it. If you're rewatching the live, go on ahead and say hey as well. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, be sure to like us. I don't know if you can share thoughts on podcasts, but you can rate us 5 stars and turn on automatic downloads. And also be sure to turn on notifications on the YouTube channel so that you never miss conversations with leaders in supply chain and e-commerce like Bernard. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.